Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is Vinny from the iMoot team. We're actually, during Michael's session this morning, reaching the halfway point. I think the official halfway point is in about 1 hour's time. Michael, we're looking forward to this. So Michael Raadt from Moodle HQ talking about how we can help to make Moodle better. Whenever you're ready, Michael.
Thanks, Vinny. It's good to see lots of people here, and I'm competing with Teresa Gibson, so that's a pretty big accomplishment. I was just looking at the world clock and having a look at what time it was around the world. Where I am, I'm in Perth. It's just gone 8 o'clock in the morning, so good morning. It's a nice chilly morning here, about 13 degrees outside, and yeah, around the world, got a few people, Australia, New Zealand here, I suspect, and possibly a few people in the Americas, and probably everyone in Europe is asleep. Maybe there'll be a few more people. I get to repeat this tomorrow evening for me. And I think that'd probably be a better time for people in the other half of the world. But yeah. All right, yeah. So if you're here, just say a quick hi in the text chat. Let us know where you're at and maybe what kind of weather it is at your place. So sunny. The temperature in Sydney. Same, I suppose. Overcast. Morning to everyone in Asia, of course. Where I am is the most populous time zone in the world, running north from Perth. We've of course got quite a fair bit of China. So, yeah, large chunk of the world is just waking up on a Saturday morning. Right, well, it's good to have you guys all here. I'll a bit of a video hello so you can see who I am as well. I'm not sure if I'll share it continuously throughout the presentation. Good morning, everyone. Can everyone see me? So we're all either knocking off for the end of the week or at home, cozy in our own homes, I hope. All right. Susie said that she was on a couch sandwiched between two dogs before she left this morning. Yeah, middle shirt. Yeah. Okay. That's on. Indeed. Yes. All right. Well, oh, and the party ribbon's behind me. It's my son's birthday party later today, so we're a bit prepared, although we can just pretend it's for iMoot. Hooray! Cool. All right. Well, yeah, I'll start off presentation with a bit of a who am I? So my name is Michael. As I mentioned, I'm living in Perth, Western Australia. I've got a family, you can see there, and 2 kids. My son is 9 and my daughter is 11. And my wife and I, we've been married for about 15 years now. Relatively new to the state, and other things I like to do. Getting into swimming a bit more. My son and I do a fair bit of swimming. You can see me there with my master's friends who I swim with, and our wonderful coach. Very casual with the master's swimming, but lot of good fun. Some of the guys there are twice my age, but they're still hanging on. It's really enjoyable to be a part of that. Yeah, so how I became involved in Moodle, I think an iMoot is a great place to sort of share your Moodle stories, and whether you're just starting your Moodle story or if you're well into it, this is mine. So I was an academic. I'd sort of gone through and become a lecturer at university, gained my PhD, and did some educational qualifications as well. Was working at a university in Queensland, which is on the other side of Australia, and was doing a fair bit of teaching and so forth in software development, programming, and the like. Was also involved in the sort of LMS side of things. I was involved in a trial of Moodle at our university, and that was quite a few years ago now. I was also sort of having some students working on Moodle projects and coding Moodle plugins and that sort of thing. Yeah, and I was getting more involved. I was also doing a bit of development myself, and I had specific sort of educational ideas, and I wanted to create tools for that, so I created a few little add-ons for Moodle, one of which was the progress bar, which seems to be perhaps the best known. I also sort of became involved with Anthony Borrow. I don't know if any of you caught his presentation yesterday, but Anthony is the coordinator of contributions to plugins, sort of the add-on side of Moodle, and I started to help him evaluate plugins for Moodle, and so I was doing quite a fair bit of work in the Moodle community, and being an academic, you've got to find sort of a reason to justify your time. So while I was doing that, I also wrote a book about Moodle. Well, it was called Moodle Top Extensions at the time. The terminology we use now is add-ons, and that sort of never made any money for me at all, but was a good experience to write that. But looking towards change and that sort of thing, I was talking to Martin, and he was interested in getting some help here at Moodle HQ in Perth. So he said, look, why don't you head over and join us here at Moodle HQ? And so now I am a manager of the developers at Moodle HQ. And so my role, part of what I do is giving presentations at Moots. This is a picture of me presenting in Japan. Can't you tell? Obviously it's Japan. Me gesticulating a lot in Japan. You're fortunate you don't have to see my hands today. I also take care of releases. So when there's a new version of Moodle released, it's my job to make sure it happens on time. There's a lot of other people obviously involved, but I'm the sort of bulldog that makes it all come together. Release notes, making sure everything is in place, security issues, and alerting people about the new release and that sort of thing. I do a lot of this, sort of talking to developers, both in the office and remotely. We have a team that's sort of spread around the world a bit. Most of us are in Perth, but then I also talk to people in other offices or in other places around the world, all over the place. And we don't have any TPS reports, but we do have a lot of time to talk, and some of that's online, some of it's text chat. There's a non-stop developer text chat which goes on 24 hours a day, and you'll always find people in there. I've just finished writing another book, although I can't claim most of the credit. Most of it should go to Gavin Henrik, who you may also have heard of. So this is a very up-to-date book on add-ons. If you're interested in finding out about add-ons, and I'm not going to talk about that too much today, but it's probably a really good resource to have. It looks at quite a few add-ons and gives some reviews of them, but it also talks about how to think about add-ons, how to test add-ons, and how to create policies for adopting add-ons at institutions. Gavin has a lot of experience consulting with large and small institutions about their use of Moodle, and there's a lot of experience in there, which is really. I'm not getting any proceeds from this because my contribution was a little different, but if you want to support Moodle in a small way, some of the money from the sales of this book will go to the Moodle Trust. And finally, and perhaps more relevant to what we're talking about today, part of my job is to do triage when other things aren't swallowing up my time. And we'll sort of talk about triage a little later, but in brief, it's when issues are reported through the tracker, somebody needs to have a first look, and quite often that's me. All right. Now, before we get into the main part of this presentation, I thought I'd set a bit of a context. It's sort of useful to the rest of this presentation. You can zoom in here now. Isn't that wonderful technology? So I'm going to sort of set the context of this open source project and try and see if I can illustrate the scale of things around the world. So we've got Moodle Core, which is perhaps the primary concern of developers at Moodle HQ. It is the APIs and libraries that form the foundation of Moodle. It's quite a complex system. It could be compared to the operating system on your computer, and in many ways we see Moodle as this platform that enables education in all sorts of different forms. So Moodle Core is just the basis of that platform. We also distribute with Moodle Core 316 standard plugins. That's quite a few, really, when you think about it. I'm not sure how many you would come in contact with on a daily basis, but some of them are really quite small. You've got some question types, little types of grading, scaling sort of things, all the way up to whole modules like the assignment, the quiz, enrollment plugins, all sorts of things. So there's quite a few of those. Now, the developer community outside of Moodle HQ is also very much responsible for contributing to the functionality of Moodle. There are in the plugins directory currently 589 add-ons. There's a few more than that are not visible to people. We do go through a sort of a vetting process as add-ons are added or contributed. The previous we had a database activity for add-ons. It had over 600 activities. Part of the reasoning that we shifted over to a new sort of repository for these sorts of plugins was because a lot of those old ones were unmaintained, and we wanted to sort of start afresh and make sure that we were getting only plugins that were of a certain standard, and there's a lot more other information that you can get out of the new plugins directory. I'll switch back to a larger view. Now, working on, as I mentioned, the Moodle Core, we have 19 developers now at Moodle HQ. It's not a huge team compared to many other groups that you might find, groups of developers around. I suspect there are larger teams at universities and Moodle partners, Certainly in the developer community here in Perth, we have financial institutions, government bodies, and so forth who have larger teams than that. So we're sort of a small part in this community, trying to do as much as we can. We have, if you have a look at the tracker and a few other places, if you sort of try and roughly count them up, about 400 developers in the community. So these are the people that are, adding bits to Moodle core, sort of providing fixes for standard plugins, but also sharing their add-ons. There's probably a lot more developers who do work with Moodle who aren't officially counted in that, but that was the count that I found from the tracker yesterday. Now the tracker, which I'll be talking a lot more about later on, has about 23,000 users, a bit over 23,000. So there's a lot of people that are involved that deeply in Moodle, and they are prepared to sort of have a contribution to the quality of Moodle, make suggestions, report bugs, and so forth. I'm not sure how many of those are active now. There's a fair history in the tracker, but that's quite a lot of users. But really, all of these groups are dwarfed by the scale of the actual size of the Moodle community at large. According to our stats, and this is only from registered sites, which may be anywhere from half to 10% of the actual number, but the official number at least is about 70 million users, worldwide on registered sites. So we have a lot of people using Moodle every day all over the world, and this whole community is working together to create a Moodle for the future and try and make it better. Now, Moodle has a number of sites around to support that huge community. Moodle.org is probably the main focus, and there you'll also find a few specific parts of Moodle.org which are there to support the community. We have forums, which is a very active place for interaction, and you will find some developers there, but you'll also find people who are users, administrators, lots of people asking and answering questions, sharing their successes, and it's happening in not just English, but also many other languages as well. We have the plugins directory, which I mentioned before. It's a place where you can go and find add-ons to extend Moodle. In my perspective, that part of Moodle, the plugins, is just as important as the code, the part of Moodle, which is the part that Moodle core that we distribute from Moodle HQ. Without plugins, I don't think Moodle would be what it is today. You can download versions, the latest version, or we support a number of versions a few branches back. There is the tracker, which is the place where we sort of interact with each other, the developers interact there, and we talk about code changes, improvements, bugs, so forth, and that's probably going to be the focus of the majority of the rest of this talk. There is the docs, which is a place to find information about how to use Moodle. We also have we have a wiki specifically for Moodle users, and we've also got a separate wiki for Moodle developers. So if you're interested in development, it's there's information on how to develop for Moodle. But we also realize that we don't want to pollute the main Moodle docs wiki with that sort of information. It would be confusing for a lot of users to all of a sudden be confronted with that sort of information, so we keep them separate. Sort of outside the Moodle.org, well, it's not really one server, but anyway, we also have Moodle.net. Now, Moodle.net has been known by a few other names in the past, the Hub or Mooch. It is a place where people can share both content and courses. So if you go there, you can browse through and make use of shared content that people have put up there, and you can also share your own. Now, you can do this through that Moodle.net site, or you can interact with it if you've got hubs turned on your community hubs turned on your Moodle site. So you can import whole courses using them. Wanting to find common content. We also have a number of demo sites which are useful not just for finding out about Moodle, but if you want to test Moodle on another site. So one of the things I'm going to be talking about later is replicating a problem. If you found a problem on your own site and you want to check if it's the same on another site, these sites are available to you. Demo.moodle.net is pretty much just a blank slate. It's sort of an empty Moodle site, and you can go in there and freely play with it, and it resets hourly. We also have demo, the school demo site, school.demo.moodle.net, and that is an illustration of Moodle from different perspectives. We have content there that sort of represents various levels of education from various diverse sort of areas of learning, sort of science, arts, those sorts of things. So you can go there and sort of get a semi-authentic view of Moodle in real practice and in real use. QA.moodle.net is the site that we use for QA testing, but you can use it at any time of the year. It's always got the latest version of Moodle, the master version. So right now we're working towards, even now, Moodle 2.6. So every change that we make goes into that master version, and we then will roll that up into Moodle 2.6 in about 6 months from now. But you can actually see that those changes coming about immediately, when they become a weekly release on qa.moodle.net. So if you want to test something there in the latest Moodle, you can do so at any time. And my final piece of context setting relates to growth, and particularly in the growth of features that have been added to Moodle over time. Moodle started actually back in 1999, but the first public release of Moodle, I guess, was Moodle 1.0, which came about in 2002. At that time, there was a small number of plugins that have been shared, but when it came out, people immediately started jumping on it and adding more. Now, at that stage, if you were willing to share something, it became part of Moodle. There was no real distinction between add-ons and core Moodle and standard plugins. It was all just one big thing, Moodle. So a lot of people came and added some bits, and they're now part of what we call the standard Moodle release. As time progressed, there was an uptake of Moodle through the community, but there was also an increase in the growth of features in Moodle. So we had more modules, activities, and other sorts of plugins being added to Moodle. Moodle was always modular, so we had people sharing their things, to the point where a decision was made that we should probably separate out the contributions that people want to share from what we'd call the standard distribution. So while there was this great deal of growth, there was also a need to see some more control over it, but it was a big period of growth up to, and including 1.6 and a bit beyond that. 2010 saw Moodle 2, and there was a fair bit of reflection on the best way to do things, not just in terms of the use of Moodle, but in the Moodle system itself and the architecture there. There was a desire to sort of allow people to make changes to Moodle without having to hack Moodle core. So the plugin architecture grew quite a bit at that stage, which basically means that people can add bits to Moodle without affecting the core Moodle sort of product, if you like. All right. Yeah, and if we look at the present, I guess what you'll see now is a relatively stable feature set. I think most people are usually happy with core Moodle and the functionality that it provides, and they're familiar with some of the plugins and their use, and so they're happy with what they can do with Moodle. So that's sort of settled down quite a bit. At Moodle HQ, we're sort of very we're slowing down a lot of our growth in terms of features. There are some features being added, and some of them are relatively significant, but we're certainly doing it far less frequently than it used to happen. The focus instead of growth features, is to try and look at what we have as Moodle and make sure that it is working on all devices. The current sort of focus of usability and cross-platform sort of use of Moodle is something that we're working on right now and have been working on for the last sort of year or so. We're also looking at providing greater support for plugins integration. So it's a lot easier now to add a plugin than it used to be. You used to need to be able to go to the server's file system and drop files in the right place, and if you didn't do it quite right, then the plugin wouldn't work. Now you can just browse through the plugins directory, and you can click a button, and it will try and interact with will try and take you to your Moodle site and allow you to install the plugin easily there. With that in mind, that allows us to sort of say, well, if you want more features, they are there, and it's easier for us to point you to the plugins to get them. Okay, so I think I'm done setting the context. Now to get into the main thrust of this, and sort of arose as a request, really, when I was asked to speak. Someone had apparently sort of gathered up some requests for topics, and I understand where this person was coming from, saying that working in the tracker, which is the system that we use for development change, for tracking improvements, bug requests, and so on, can be quite intimidating, particularly if you're not a techie person. And we certainly don't want to scare those people away, because as I showed earlier, that is a very large chunk of the Moodle community, compared to a very small group who are the actual developers working on code. So the rest of this presentation is going to be a guide to how to use the tracker and how to be effective, and certainly it's open to everybody, not just developers. Now I'm going to go through this sort of process of how you can report or interact with an issue. So this could be an improvement that you've thought of, although I'll talk about the proportions of things later, or it could be a bug that you found in Moodle, and we'll go through step by step how you should approach sort of going through the idea of trying to get something fixed. starting off, the best place is to do a bit of a search. Now, as you can imagine, there are lots of people around the world using Moodle, and so you might be not the first person to discover a problem or to think of an idea. So the tracker has, it's approaching 40,000 issues, most of which have been closed and gone, but there may be the idea that you have in there already. So I'll go through, first of all, a look at how you go searching for issues in the tracker. The tracker, by the way, is tracker.moodle.org, and in order to do any of this, to do searching, you don't need to have an account, you don't need to log in. Later steps, if you want to, say, report an issue or be involved in an issue, do require you to have an account and log in. But I'll assume that you're capable of doing that. Now, when you go into the tracker, at the top left of the page there's a few menus, and one of them is an issues menu. I'll try and zoom in on this. So this issues menu here, if you click on it, brings up a search page. So the search page has a nice menu-driven interface in the basic view, and there's a few steps that you can go through to find the issues that you're looking for. The first thing that you probably want to understand is that we use the tracker not just for Moodle issues, as in the Moodle system. We also use it for add-ons, so Moodle Core add-ons, as well as a number of other projects that we have that we run at Moodle. So if you're reporting a Moodle bug, okay, or you think you found a Moodle bug, or you've got an improvement idea for Moodle, and you want to see if somebody else has reported that before, probably the first thing you want to do is narrow down your searching to just the Moodle project. And so you click on the project button, and it brings up a list of these possible projects. Select Moodle, and then you'll be just looking at Moodle issues. If we, I think I've mixed up. So if we're just selecting all of the Moodle issues only, you'll narrow that down. Probably an extra slide in there unnecessarily. All right. So in this slide, I'll zoom in again. I've selected the Moodle project, and there's a few other things that, issue type. We'll skip over that for now. Status, that's fine. Fine. The next thing you probably want to do is just type in some keywords. So if you type them in there and click on the magnifying glass, you will start a search. Now, like a web search, so if you're using Google or some other web search engine, if you type in some keywords, obviously the more specific you get, the more specific the results will get. In other words, the fewer the results will get. So if you want to, you can start broad. So if you found an issue with an error in the assignment, you do that, and you'll probably, if you click that, you'll probably get quite a few issues returned to you, and then you can try and focus your search a bit more as you go. You may want to narrow things down a bit more by looking in various other aspects. On the right-hand side of those buttons, there was a More Criteria button, and one of the common things that I search in is component. So if you click More Criteria and tick the component box there, you'll get another menu that allows you to select a component. And you might ask, well, what is a component? Components are just various areas of Moodle. Some of them are representing, specific modules in Moodle, like the assignment module. Some of them are more abstract, like administration obviously covers a large area of Moodle, or it could just be a feature of Moodle generally, like accessibility. Okay, so it's worth looking through this list and finding the relevant components that you're interested in. You can select more than one there, and then you'll be doing searching across multiple components. Another little tip that I'd suggest is that you try and order your results. So each of these columns, this is like a table of issues below, each has various aspects that you can sort on. I typically tend to sort on the created date, because what that does is it gives me a perspective of Moodle over time. More recently reported issues tend to be related to more recent versions of Moodle. So if you're using a newer version of Moodle and it's a relatively new problem that you think you've found, it's more than likely to be up the top of the list if you're sorting them by reverse chronological order. So certainly order things by different means, but yeah, I tend to sort of search by reverse created order. And if you're spending a bit more time searching for issues, you can switch from what's called the basic mode to advanced mode. And what that gives you is this, instead of buttons, it allows you to add a query in as text. You actually get a bit more potential through this text interface. And it is somewhat helpful still. It will try and prompt you. So for example, if I started typing, a component in, and then I left it, it would allow me to select from a list of various components. So it does interact with you a bit. But this might be a bit intimidating for people who aren't familiar with sort of a querying style. It's similar to what's used to query databases. But if you're a frequent tracker user, it is a bit of a quicker way to get to issues. I don't recommend it if you're not doing this on a frequent basis. All right, so once you've done a bit of searching, you will have either found what you're looking for or not found what you're looking for. So let's make the assumption that you did find an issue which is similar to what you were wanting to report. And I would say, don't stop there. Don't just say, well, somebody's reported it. I'll just assume that it'll be fixed now and leave it at that. I really recommend that you become involved from that point, because your involvement can make an issue progress. As I mentioned, there's a lot of issues, a large user community, a small number of developers working on Moodle. So things are done in a priority order. And so your involvement can make things work slightly faster. It depends on the type of issue, of course. You can't make a very small issue jump to the top of the queue. We have security issues and significant things that are breaking Moodle, but every bit of input helps issues move through this sort of process of being fixed. So there are a few things that you can do on existing issues. Now, as I mentioned, you sort of need to log in to be able to do these things. You can't anonymously watch something or vote or comment on things. So you don't have to give all your personal details when you sort of log in and create an account, but you do need to have an account. So watching basically means that when there are changes in an issue, so someone comments or someone starts working on it, or there's a fix provided, you would receive an email in relation to that. Voting means that you're wanting to just show, like raise your hand and say, I'm interested in this issue. And of course, commenting is providing some textual input into the issue, which may be something like, yeah, I'm experiencing this problem, or I think this is a great idea, we should try this, or providing more information generally. So let's have a look at how you can do that. On an issue, so we found an issue. It was the issue that we were looking for. It was similar to ours. On the sort of top right of the page, you've got some information about the people involved in it, who reported it. The assignee is a developer when they take on the issue, which our current policy is that issues are unassigned until the developer starts working on them, and a list of things. If you've come along and found this and you want to watch, all you have to do is click the word watch, and then you will automatically be sort of added to the watch list, and as changes come about, you'll be notified about them. If you want to vote, it's again a simple matter of just clicking the word vote, and your vote will be registered. You can only vote once, of course. We do have some peculiar things that come about through voting. I have seen a newly reported issue which seems very small in nature, and all of a sudden it's got 20, 30 votes on it because someone in an institution or an office somewhere has said, oh, I sent around a message, everyone vote for this issue and we'll get it fixed quicker. Yeah, that sort of thing is probably not, it's sort of a distortion of the community representation. I sort of try and ask people not to try and crowd vote on issues. Just if you're personally invested in the issue, give it a vote. Commenting, you just go down the bottom of the page and you'll find a comment button, and the input of comments is in a wiki format, but you don't have to use any formatting at all. You can just type in there freely. You can paste in text so if you've got some information that you want to copy in there, you can just paste it in there. That's fine. If you want any, there is a sort of a help pop-up there if you want to try and make your comment formatted in a different way. But yeah, if you're familiar with using a wiki, that's very similar, but you don't need to necessarily use that wiki syntax. All right, so the other sort of possibility after you've searched for an issue was that you didn't find what you were looking for, and you've either found a new problem that hasn't been reported before, or you've got a new idea for an improvement or new feature that no one else has sort of reported before. Let's for the first case, let's assume that you've found a bug and you want to report it. Before you start actually going in and creating a new issue, it's probably a good idea that you go and do a bit of research. Without the sort of information that we need to fix a bug, there's not much that developers can do about it. So we need that sort of information. Replication steps is something that pretty much anyone should be able to discover. By following these steps, this problem occurred. So try and come up with a concise series of steps that will lead to the problem so that anybody else could jump in. That would include, who you logged, what sort of role you logged in as. You go to a course and you created an activity of a particular type and you went through various settings and then you did certain actions. It could involve, if there's students, you might have to say, at this point you need to log in as a student and so on. So this is just a procedure that somebody else could go to replicate that problem. Now, once you've sort of listed out those steps for yourself, I recommend that you try and replicate it on another instance of Moodle. What that will tell you is whether your problem is isolated to your particular instance, or if it's a general problem that should be fixed in Moodle itself. Now, if you're confident with that, then it's probably time, you've definitely discovered a problem, then it's time to go and create an issue. If you were just reporting an improvement, suggesting this change to Moodle, you could skip those steps, but you do want to come up with a good description of your idea. It's not enough to say, I think Moodle should show buttons in purple. That's you've got to have a justification for why you think this is better, and maybe a fair bit of detail. You can add as much detail as you possibly can. But then you can go in and you can create an issue. So let's look at how issues get created. All right. Now, again, in the tracker, top right, there's a button, and it's always in the same place there. Create an issue. Click on that. Purple is prettier. Thank you. You click on that, and you get this initial dialog. Now, this is the cut down version of the dialog for reporting an issue, and it's the basics. It's the minimum amount of information that we ask for. I mentioned project earlier. If you're reporting an issue with Moodle itself, you want to make sure that that's set to the Moodle project, which is the default. If it's a bug that you're reporting, make sure that the issue type is set to bug. But if you're reporting an improvement or a new feature, you can select those as the issue type, which is indicated there. The next field down is your summary, and the summary is like a heading for the issue. So it should be concise. You don't want to have multiple sentences here. In fact, you don't even need a whole sentence. You just want something very brief that quickly describes the issue and what part of Moodle perhaps that you found it in and what's going on. This is what you'll see as text when you go searching for issues, so it needs to be quite concise. The description is obviously freely open. You can add as much text there as you like, and the more the better, really. This is where you would put in your replication steps if you found a problem and you want to sort of demonstrate that somebody else could go and repeat that. If you've got any sort of error messages, all sorts of things there. So the more detail, the better. For an improvement request, try and explicate your idea as much as possible, your justification for it, and how you think it would benefit everybody. The version, so what version of Moodle you're using, which is quite relevant sometimes, particularly to bugs, but it sort of indicates a point in time as well, generally. So if you're working on the latest version of Moodle, you can put that in there. Components we mentioned earlier, so these are the parts of Moodle. So if it's a particular module, you can indicate that, or if it's an area like administration, or if it's something more general like usability, you can indicate that there. Now you can indicate multiple components here, and so try and think of what areas of Moodle are affected and put them all in there. This is also, as I mentioned, one of the aspects that you'd commonly search, for. So that's important that is exactly. Security. I'm not going to go into this too far, but if you believe that either Moodle is revealing information to people that it shouldn't be revealing it to, or if it's providing access to people who shouldn't have access, then it should be a security issue, or considered a bit more, it gets a much higher priority. Some people aren't quite sure, so there is a sort of this could be a security issue level, but if you want more information, there's a little bit of a help dialogue there, and you can look at the levels there. Security issues definitely get looked at quite quickly. All right, now that's the minimum set of details, but if you're wanting to really make your issue complete, then once you save that, you get taken to a page where you see the issue details. You can go and edit it and add more details. Now, we don't provide the potential to add these details on the initial page. So the top half of this, or more than half really, top part of this page is what you saw on that initial dialog that pops up. The rest of it, as we'll scroll down, are additional details. We felt that it's a bit overwhelming to ask people for all of these details, quite a lot of these details are just related to the development side of things, so they're not relevant necessarily to the people who are reporting them. Priority is something that you can change when you edit an issue. It is one of the features that we look at when we're trying to judge what we should do next in terms of development. Now, be prudent in that. Remember that you're part of an entire community. So if you set that to an unrealistic level, like a blocker, it's pretty soon going to be, seen, and you'll probably get a lot of people disagreeing with you. So if you think that buttons should be purple, and you set that as a blocker, people might be very happy with you, and yeah, that'll probably get changed. Scrolling down a bit, there's a few features there we could skip over, but there is information about the environment that can sometimes be relevant. So environment means the computer that's running Moodle at your institution. So if you know some details of that, that may be relevant. So if you're using Windows or Linux on the server there, if it's related to your user interface, it could be the browser that you're working on, and the operating system. So if you're a user of Moodle and there's a sort of a user interface issue, those sorts of details are useful there. Related to environment is database. So if your institution is using a particular database, you can indicate that. If you're not sure, and quite often it's not necessarily relevant anyway, then that's fine. But if you do know, it can sometimes help. Scrolling down a bit further, there's a field for providing a workaround. So if you found a problem, but you also found a way to deal with it by other means, it's useful to share those ideas there. That means that if somebody else has the same problem, they can potentially take your solution and work around it in the meantime until it gets fixed properly. Down a bit further, you can attach files to an issue. That can include screenshots, which are very useful, particularly in user interface issues. You can add anonymized course backups. So if you're trying to illustrate that an activity breaks under certain circumstances using certain settings, you can actually share a backup of that, which can be very useful when trying to replicate a problem. But screenshots as well are really useful to illustrate problems in the user interface. Again, the more detail, the better. And right down the bottom is a chance for you to add another comment. If you're editing an issue multiple times, it's useful to add a new comment each time saying, what it is that you changed or the reason why you changed. Okay, so that's probably the interface in Tracker for creating it. But like anything, using it and doing it properly is two different things. So what's in a good report generally? For bugs in particular, but also for anything else, a good description is useful. If you found a problem, then detailed replication steps are really, really helpful. Make sure that you add not just the steps that you got to, but at the end, what you expected to happen and what actually happened. Because you might be assuming that the other person, the person reading your description understands your problem, but sometimes you really just need to spell it out. I'm not saying developers are dummies, but they're not always using Moodle in the same way that you are. If you found an error, it's useful if you can provide some error messages that might be appearing. If there's none appearing, there are some settings in the Moodle administration so that you can turn on error messages. Now, normally for a real user site, you would have these off. So if you're replicating it on a second server where you can have them on, that's a great thing, because then you get a bit more information to report in an issue. If you've only got the one system, you can turn it on temporarily, see if there's any error messages that you could copy and paste into an issue, and then turn it off again afterwards. So it's not a permanent thing by any means. JavaScript is a language that's used for interaction within the web browser itself. So it's not the interaction on the server where Moodle is installed. It's what's happening on your browser. And all browsers have a little JavaScript error console. It's usually turned off. Again, if you turn this on, you might see some errors about the user interface code that's changing. And if you can copy those into an issue, that helps as well. Details, 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 really. The more, the better. Be accurate about the components that you're choosing. Well, that's not good timing. As well as selecting the right components. Make sure you get all the ones that are covered. That will help you to your issue to be found more easily in searches. Someone's very keen to talk to us. The environment information, if we can provide that, that helps in trying to narrow down where the problem is, because it might be something that happens in your environment but not in another environment. If you provide a workaround, that'll help other people in the interim until the problem is fixed. And finally, attachments and so on really enrich an issue. All right. Okay, so we're coming to the end of this process. So whether you're working on an issue that's been reported before, or you've just created a new issue, it can help to then discuss it further in forums. Basically, the forums are reaching a much broader audience. If you want to draw the attention to an issue to more people, for example, if you want to share your idea for an improvement with more people, you can raise it as a forum post and direct people to your tracker issue. And that might get more people involved in that, sharing their ideas, potentially voting, watching, commenting, and so forth. And that can help the issue go further. Now, Moodle issues don't get worked on instantly. None of them do. Sometimes very high priority issues might get worked on by people within weeks. But some issues do, if they're very low priority issues, so very minor, trivial type issues, can linger around and potentially sit there and not get fixed, and eventually sort of fade into the background of ideas. If you're really keen to promote your issue, and it hasn't been sort of promoted to a high enough level that perhaps someone at Moodle HQ is dealing with it, or someone else in the community is not dealing with it, you can try and find a developer, or you can even be brave and try and fix it yourself. I'm not necessarily saying that you have to. And this is in the case where you're invested in something enough to say, I want to get this fixed. If you do find a developer who is willing to work on something for you, share that, whatever they've found, if possible, because that will help everybody else in the community. And you can do that by attaching patches, and if they're using Git, they can attach those sorts of details to the issue. All right. I know I'm running out of time. My apologies there, but quickly, what happens to an issue after it's been reported? Triage is usually the first thing. Most issues will go through a bit of a review to make sure that they're complete or sane, and you might be asked for more detail. Over time, it might get picked up for development when an issue is worked on. So developers will share their code solution. Other developers will have a look at that and try and review it. Finally, I can run 15 minutes more. Wow, that's generous. All right. Well, if you're heading off somewhere else, I'll understand that, people. But I'll continue on, but I'll try and make it brief still. Hopefully we'll have some time for questions, perhaps. When the code's considered good enough after peer review, it then goes and gets integrated. There's more review as part of that, and obviously testing. happens on all code that's introduced into Moodle Core and the standard plugins goes through this entire process. So it's very thorough. We want to make sure that we put code out there that doesn't have more problems in it than we're trying to fix, which is probably a good general philosophy all around. All right. I've got some stats here on tracker issues. I don't know if people are generally interested in this, but it shows where things are going and so on. These stats are about a month old now, but so we've had a few more issues since then, opened and closed, obviously. So we're reaching towards 40,000 issues reported in the Moodle project. Obviously, most of those have been closed, worked on and closed, or they've become irrelevant because Moodle has moved on. Now, there are quite a few open issues there, and that might seem like a lot, but they everything from a very trivial suggestion for an improvement all the way up to security problems are represented in that. Now, what are those open issues? About half of them at this stage are requests for improvements or suggestions for new features. I would say on a reporting basis, those sorts of issues represent about 10% of issues that are reported. So it's an indication of where we tend to fix more, or developers tend to fix more bugs than they do improvements. So bugs are seen as obviously a higher priority than improvements generally. And as I mentioned, the feature set of Moodle is becoming a lot more stable. So we're more interested in polishing it and making it work well with what we have now than extending it indefinitely. Of the bugs, about a third of those relate to currently supported versions, and we have a lot of other bugs that are older, which are now related to unsupported versions and possibly to current versions. In the end, there's probably about 800 relevant bugs in Moodle that should be fixed and are being fixed over time. If you took those 400 developers that I mentioned earlier and gave them all 2 bugs each, we could have Moodle sorted out in 2 weeks. But yeah, that's not going to happen. Anyway, we are working on things. I think we're looking at about a rate of about 50 a week, 50 issues a week get integrated. But then, yeah, that's matched by various volumes of issues being reported. It's more of a case of we know and we're very open about the issues in Moodle. If you were to compare it to a sort of a closed source product, you'd find that they're not telling you about these bugs, but they're probably all still there. And in the end, it depends on how you deal with it more so than how we go about making sure that we fix the problems in an appropriate way, more so than trying to fix everything in a random way. All right, well, that's the end of my presentation. We have a postcard wall at Moodle HQ. If you're a person who appreciates the work of the developers at Moodle HQ and wants to send them sort of some small token of gratitude, grab a postcard. We love receiving these from all around the world, and the more remote place you are, the better. Or even if you're not in a remote place, yeah, just jot down that address, or you can look it up on the web. It's public, and post us a postcard. We love to receive them, and it really reminds the developers that the community is interested in what goes on and appreciates the development work that happens. Is there anyone that has any questions at this stage? Yeah. Yeah, so if you think you've got a problem and you've got some specific setup, report it regardless. We do have specific environments that we try and support, but generally we try and keep that as open as possible. And we do, like on the machine that I'm presenting to you now, I can simulate every environment that Moodle works on. So we do testing and development across all sorts of different environments. In saying that, sometimes it can make it hard for people to replicate, so please provide as much detail as you can. So mine is really without institutions, PeopleSoft software that enrolls and unenrolls students at times that we don't want them to. Oracle. Yes, we do support Oracle, the Oracle database system, and so if you are working with PeopleSoft, you can get some interaction there. But yeah, people's interactions with student management systems perhaps be the trickiest part of Moodle installation and live. Yes, the university that I was working for coming to Moodle HQ was using Oracle and PeopleSoft as well, and they have since contributed a lot of bug fixes and so forth. So those issues did make a difference, and hopefully they'll benefit other people using that sort of environment as well. Getting rid of old code. The upgrade process over time sort of takes care of the code. I guess my concern when I see errors that have come about over long periods of upgrading tend to be more to do with the data in the database as the upgrades have occurred over time, more so than the code itself. So what can happen is, as you do an upgrade, one particular field was used at some point in time, and later down the track, that field was no longer used, or the other way around, and then you can have potential problems there if the upgrade doesn't work properly. And I guess that's the most sensitive part of an upgrade. So if something goes wrong during an upgrade, that's maybe where you're going to have your problem, even if you've gone through the process of doing backups properly and so forth over time. I'm not suggesting that people do a clean install. Certainly we do long tests on series of upgrades and try and make sure that Moodle still works as it should. Milo, come here. Yeah, so you should be relatively safe moving forward. The stopping points for upgrades are Moodle 2.0. So if you've got a site that's older than that, you need to go to Moodle 2.2 first before you go up to Moodle 2.5. We haven't decided when we're going to introduce the next sort of stopping point along the way. But there's talk of a long-term support version and other things as well. Yeah, we need a doggy badge. This is Milo. Say hello, Milo. Hello. All right. Woohoo! Thanks, Wendy. Is it the Japanese Spitz? Anyone here from Japan at the moment? Are there any other questions? Thanks, Jenny. Catch you later. Question. there about the trustworthiness of workarounds. So if someone's providing a code change suggestion, I would be wary of it. It's not something that's gone through that process of review and integration, as well as that if you're hacking your Moodle core code, it's going to be harder for you to upgrade in future. So yeah, if it's a functionality workaround, you're probably safe to sort of take whatever suggestions are given. But if it's something to do with hacking code, I would do it with great care and make sure that you test it out thoroughly. Yeah, I guess some concern about the frequency of upgrades and so on. We put out a new version of Moodle every week. So it really depends on your perspective as to whether or not an upgrade is significant or not. I guess the reason why we do things on a regular basis every 6 months for a major release is just to try and draw attention to changes over time, which are going in there all the time. So we're always fixing bugs and adding more bits and pieces as we go through. If people saw upgrades as just a small step forward, but obviously institutions, and particularly large ones, have change management processes, and they see these sorts of things as very significant steps. Depends on sort of a level of trust, and I don't think the changes between Moodle 1.9 and Moodle 2 earned us a lot of trust there, because there was significant changes made. It's easy to upgrade from 1.9 to 2, but because the architecture for plugins changed, a lot of institutions that had their own code changes and had their own contributed plugins that they were using had to spend a lot of time making those changes, and it cost them a great deal of effort. And that perhaps created an attitude towards future upgrades that it was less than positive. Yeah, in saying that, we're trying to make it as easy as possible moving forward. We've got a commitment to backwards compatibility all the way back to Moodle 2 now, and we want to try and make it seem like it's not such a huge step. But I mean, if you're upgrading on a regular basis, that's a great thing. If you're not able to do that, we do try and support back for at least sort of a year and a half. Going beyond that, you may be risking the security of your site, and you should keep an eye on the security issues that do get reported and make sure that you work with those. There is talk of a long-term support version. So Moodle 1.9 was supported for a long time. Moodle HQ doesn't support that anymore, but there's still some ongoing support within the community itself. But that's coming to an end as well. So if you're still on a version prior to Moodle 2, you're in a pretty risky territory there. You probably want to consider upgrading. And there's all sorts of wonderful things that you're missing out on as well. Yeah, so for longer than 18 months, there's a possibility that we might do that. It's still not definite, and it's certainly not definite at what point we will do it. So possibly 2.6, but I'm not committing anything there. How do you propose a patch for a known issue? If you're a developer or you have access to a developer, you can share a patch as a separate file and attach that to the issue. But Git is the system of choice for sharing code changes now. If you're familiar with Git, you can create a branch in Git for your changes, and then you can share that through a system like GitHub. If you want more information about that, I'm happy to talk about it, but I think I'm out of time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Anthony's great. All right, well, I'm not sure if Vinny or Wendy wants to say anything now, but I'll sign off and say thank you very much to everybody who attended, and I hope you got something out of it. I'll be repeating this tomorrow evening my time, so if you want to see the polished version of this, you could probably see it then. All right, thanks everyone. No,
Thanks,
Mike, Wendy.
Michael. I'll just
Thanks, Vinny.
I'll just jump in. Yeah, thank you very much. Sorry to kind of not cut you off, but it'd be lovely to have more questions, things like that. We've got a couple more sessions coming up fairly soon, so we want to give people a chance to get into their rooms and get set up for that. But thank you again for being part of it, and good luck with the rerun of this session tomorrow. Is it?
Yeah, tomorrow evening, I think 6:45 Perth time.
Oh, great. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks guys. See
And
you
thanks
later.
for everybody else for participating.